Welcome back to the vlog about my Ironman journey. Today, as you may be able to tell from my outfit, we are going to talk all about me and my bike. And this is a relationship that has been pretty fraught. Just to first go back in time and give you some background, I honestly can't remember a time as a kid when I didn't have a bike. I grew up in pretty rural places, and often my friends' houses were miles away. And so we would ride bikes everywhere. We'd ride bikes, into the woods and into the mountains. And I can remember going down hills with both hands off the handlebars and screaming speed. And when I say down hills, I grew up a lot of the time in the Rocky Mountains. So like hills, and we would go flying down them with no fear, wreck the bike, scrape yourself up, no problem, get back on, keep going. So I'm not sure what happened between when I stopped riding the bike as a kid and when I took it back up again for this Ironman journey a couple years later. But I became a little bit of a fraidy cat with the bike. And I think a big part of the reason for this is that when I first started, I wrecked my bike a lot. A lot. Way more than most people, I think. And part of this was due to the fact that the bike had to be fitted to work for my body. And in doing that, I cannot even come close to reaching the ground when I'm sitting in the seat. And the space between the seat and the handlebars doesn't really give me enough space to fit, so I can't just sort of hop off the seat like a lot of people do. So in order to stop the bike, it's really, to borrow from Eddie Izzard, more of a maneuver wherein I have to sort of stop the bike, lean to one side, push the bike back as I put my foot down, and it took me a while to get the hang of it. And so actually the very first time I rode my bike, I wrecked it. It was in the parking lot of the Unlikely Cyclist who had done the fitting and everything. And I got on and I went to turn and I kind of freaked out and I hit the brakes and I just slow-mo tipped over. This is the result. The pedal got me on the way down, so the first blood, but not the last blood on the bike. And that is what most of me wrecking my bike has been. Slow-mo, tip over. And maybe get a little abrasion on my leg or whatever, but no big deal. Get up and keep riding. But when I started, I basically could not stop the bike without falling over, which was embarrassing, and it hurt, and it created kind of a lasting fear of stopping. And so now I'll finish my ride and I go to stop the bike and immediately I start to have anxiety. And sometimes if my car's parked in a parking lot, I'm coasting off the trail, I'm coasting into the parking lot, and the whole time I'm like getting anxious and I wonder, like, is my coach looking at my heart rate when he looks at my workout and being like, why is her heart rate spiking at the end of this workout? And it's because I have to stop and it's freaking me out. Even though I haven't wrecked the bike upon stopping for quite a while, but it's still just like ingrained in me, this fear of stopping, and that at any time I could just topple over embarrassingly. And again, I've never really gotten injured, but it's not fun. So stopping, definitely not my friend. Oddly, I also get really nervous when I start riding. And this is ridiculous. I've been riding for a really long time, and yet I still get nervous each time. And what's more odd is that nothing bad has ever happened to me when I started out on a ride. Like, I've never tried to go and fall. I've done, dumb stuff like leave the bike in the hardest gear because I just did an interval training workout on my trainer and then start out uphill in the hardest gear on the bike. That was not smart, but I didn't fall or anything. Once I used to have an adjustable stem on my handlebars, and they made a mistake when it was being put back together, and for some reason they didn't quite get it locked in tight. So when I started to ride, my handlebars simply fell forward. And I still didn't fall. It was scary, but I didn't fall. And yet still, every time I start the bike, I have like this little, a bit of anxiousness about it. And it's something that I just hope will go away with time because it does, certainly get old. In terms of actual wrecks, the worst one that I've had was actually toward the beginning when I was starting to cycle and I was on a trail. I was going up a hill, and for some reason I just got a terrible cramp. And what I should have done was just hung out and let the bike sort of slow itself down to a stop. But that is not what I did. What I did was try to extend my leg to stretch out the cramp, and then I fell. And I fell pretty hard, and I fell sort of moving uphill, which isn't an easy thing to do, so I guess points there. Ouch, I definitely still have a scar from this one. I also remember as I was sitting on the side of the road trying to will myself to stand back up, these guys rode by and this guy told me, "Oh, actually, there's more space if you need to rest on the other side of the trail." His friend said, "Idiot, can't you see that she just crashed?" And he stopped to see if I was okay. I was like, "Yeah, thanks for the advice, dude. I'll definitely try to crash on the side with more space next time." Anyway, second blood on the bike. But I've really, in terms of like big wrecks or things that like I never really was terribly injured in a wreck or anything. Mostly they've been sort of the slow-mo tip over, in a couple where I went down and got a little road rash or something, but no big deal. I think part of that is because I won't ride on roads with traffic. And it's one of the things I decided when I started this journey. I don't know anyone who trains on roads in traffic who has not been hit by a car. And it's just something that I'm not willing to risk for the Ironman. There are a lot of risks you take with your health trying to do something like this. You read about people getting terrible injuries in the forum, and I've been really lucky to get, some sprained ankles and stuff, but nothing, life-altering, nothing that required hospitalization or surgery. A lot of people aren't that lucky. But I just am not willing to get hit by a car. And so the only trouble that I can really get in is trouble I can get myself in, or like ridiculous things that happen on the trail. And there are definitely plenty of those. Iron Fat presents Tales from the Trail. Excuse me, but precisely what the fuck are you doing? So things that happen regularly on the biking trail are people walking on the biking trail, not paying any attention, which is extra frustrating because there's a pedestrian trail literally 2 feet over. So, and it's better for pedestrians. It also has feet painted on it rather than the bikes that are painted on the bike trail. There are signs everywhere. So I'm not sure exactly what happens, but it's pretty common to come up on people who are walking on the bike trail, not paying attention. And perhaps when you say excuse me or whatever because they're taking up the entire bike trail, they're not that keen to get out of the way, so, which I don't understand because a 300-pound person coming at you on a bike, I would move, but not everybody. Interesting things that don't happen a lot on the beach trails. There are places where you could, if you really wanted to, get your vehicle from a parking lot onto the bike trail, and that has happened to me a few times. And always they seem to be people who are pretty intoxicated. But that's really scary because you are, I bike late at night a lot of the time, so I'm biking, I'm focusing on something, and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, it seems really bright. And that's because headlights are coming up on me, and there's really nowhere for me to go except into the sand on either side. So that is really terrifying and no fun at all. One of the funniest things that has happened to me is that I came around a blind corner and a gentleman had decided that that was the best place to put a folding chair and feed bread to pigeons. So I literally came around the corner and straight into an Alfred Hitchcock movie. There were pigeons everywhere. Nobody was happy about it. Not me, not the pigeons, not the guy. Birds are flying at me, right? I am flying at the birds. I don't think any of us got hurt. I managed to stay upright. But it was like the strangest thing like that had before or since I've never had anybody sort of sit there and just feed pigeons right on the bike path. So, but you kind of never know what can happen, and that's part of what freaks me out. And so it's definitely, I think, best that I am not on roads with cars because I seem to be able to get myself into enough trouble with just pigeons. Well, that's all for this week's Tales from the Ironman Trail. Don't forget to subscribe right here so you never miss one of these vlogs, and you can also find out more about my journey at ironfat.com. Talk to you next week.